everyone, this is Danielle, also known as Gently Smiling Jaws, and welcome to my Flosstube. I'm doing this Flosstube for December 2025, different than I've done my other Flosstubes because, to be honest, I haven't really done any cross-stitching this month, which is why I recorded myself stitching for this video. And before I go further, I'll also say that the tea that I am drinking today is almond sugar cookie from Perennial Tea Room. It just seemed appropriate for this time of year, and I am recording this on Christmas Eve. So what I did earlier today, because I'm recording this after the voiceover after the fact, is I finally sat down, pulled up some Flosstube, because I also haven't watched any Flosstube for this past month, because my rule for myself is that I can't watch Flosstube unless I'm actually sitting and doing cross-stitch myself. So I pulled up Flosstube, watched it for about 2 hours, and I got 313 stitches in on this project, which is Jewel Bakken by Modern Folk Embroidery. And the floss that I'm using is Silken Colors in the Reds from Thread Gatherer. And, you know, since I filmed this for 2 hours, I'm obviously going to, cut down the footage to be however long my voiceover here turns out to be. And what you may notice, depending on whether it gets cut out or not, is that I was using, I'm stitching this with one strand. I think the fabric is a 40 count. I don't remember offhand which fabric it is. Maybe the color was called Mallow, but I can't remember which of the manufacturers it's from, whether it was Witchelt. What? I'm not sure. But I'm stitching with one strand over two, and I was using the last 2 strands that I had kind of previously, from a length I had previously cut of this silk floss, and I had cut it a bit longer than I should have, which is why, if you notice me stopping to sort of deal with tangles, it tangled a bit on me simply because I cut it longer than I should have. But by the end of this stitching session, I have 1,581 stitches to go. So not too much left, but I'm not thinking I'm going to get it done before the end of the year, and I'll get to that later on. But the other thing I wanted to mention is, because of the project that I'm stitching on, is that, one of the things I have been watching off and on recently is that there is a live stream of, I'm probably going to mess up the pronunciation, I think it's pronounced Yalva goat. I'll link to it. There's a town in Sweden where every year they construct their goat for Christmas, similar to the Jewel Bakken that I'm stitching in this video. But it seems that sort of every year there are people who try to destroy it in some way. Since I started paying attention to it, in the last couple years, nobody has burned it down, which seems to have been, in the past, what people had done is that it would get burned down, and this is not some sort of, tradition that is encouraged or allowed, and you get in trouble if they catch you for doing it. But there were people that, every year you'd have folks that would try and destroy it. Since I have been paying attention, I think a couple years back, the straw material that they used. I think it said on the Wikipedia page for this, because there's a list of all the years they've done it and whether it has, survived the holiday season or not. And a couple years back, I guess the strong material that they used to create this goat on the metal frame had more seed in it than in past years. And so I remember watching the live stream, and there were lots of birds coming down and landing on it, I guess, to get at the seed. And so it was sort of destroyed by the birds coming down and sort of pecking away at it. And so it was slowly getting demolished by the birds. But as of the time that I am filming this, the goat is still standing, and I guess probably because in recent years the fact that there is a fence around everything, there is a guard there, and there's a 24/7 live stream on it has probably helped ensure its survival. But I will link to that if you want to go and check that out. And as always, I will also include a link to where you can go to learn about donating eSIMs to folks in Palestine. So that will be down in the description as well. So, as I mentioned, what you are seeing now on the screen is the only cross-stitching that I have done this month, and really the only crafting of any kind. I think maybe I knitted a short amount of time on some of the socks that I'm working on, but really not much. My drive has not been there this month. But I did kind of pull up, I took out my the Hobonichi weeks that I used to keep track of my cross-stitching in, and went back and looked through it, and wanted to go back through the finishes that I had for this year, which was not a ton, but I wanted to go through and remind myself of what I did accomplish. I mean, most of the things that I have as whips are kind of larger pieces. Not all of them, but yeah, I never have a whole lot of finishes. But what I have done this year is, now I'll start with Stitch for Pride 2025. I did not finish everything for the year, but if we go, by each month, I did get the first half of the year done. I did the finishes for, January, February, March, April, May, and June. And after that, I kind of sort of ran out of steam, and I didn't, pick back up with getting those. And I think as it got further into the year, knowing I had to go back and, kind of complete the past months, even though it's not a ton of stitching each month, I just, got bogged down and didn't do it. So I have Stitch for Pride half finished, but I guess that's still, 6 small finishes, even though the overall, piece for the whole year is not fully done. There were 2 other small pieces that I finished. I stitched No Kings in America by Witch's Garden Crafts, and then also another No Kings pattern by Lindsay Swearingen. So I got, those 2 smalls done. The last 2 I got were, sort of more, it gets be a bit more substantial in size. Reflections of Paris by Ink Circles, and I don't have noted down exactly how many stitches that was. But I did finish that, as well as the main piece I finished this year being Put a Bird on It by Modern Folk Embroidery. And both of those were finished a little while back, and I had sort of hoped to have them fully finished before the end of the year, but that has not happened yet. I have not selected frames and gotten them ordered, and yeah, so maybe something for me to do next year. So, that's not a whole lot of finishes for the year. And, but it's some. And thinking ahead to 2026, I think I'm less looking forward to starting new things then I would like to finish some whips. I'd like to finish the jewel balkan that you're seeing here, because like I said, there's only about, I guess it's a little under 1,600 stitches before it's done, and I'd like to just be able to wrap this up. But I don't know that I'm going to finish it before the end of the year, but maybe I'd finish it early next year. We'll see. The other thing that I want to finish is my temperature chart, which I haven't stitched on for a while. And I think, if I spent a couple days and, well, obviously I can't fully finish it. Even if I put time in, working on it, I couldn't finish it until I had all the temperatures through the end of the year. But I would like to get it done. I guess right now I'm thinking maybe before Lunar New Year, so before we're into the next year and out of the Year of the Snake, I would like to finish my temperature chart with my snake on it. But we'll see. I think a lot of this stuff is about not necessarily pushing. I don't feel like pushing myself to work on stuff where it feels like a chore. And I will say that sitting down today and doing this stitching, I did enjoy my time stitching, and I was happy to make progress. So, I'm glad I sat down and did that, but I also don't want to force myself to do things and make something that should be fun, feel like a job. Looking down at my notes here, my other thing is that for next year, I don't want to pressure myself with stitch alongs and trying to keep up with things. One thing that I had done quite some time back was I did purchase the chart for Shaded Stitchery's Data Portraits in Paris Part 2. And I think is it in February that it starts? I don't know for sure that whether I'm going to stitch along with it when it, comes out. I certainly want to see what everybody's doing, but I'm, part of me thought I would do the first part, and I've had the chart for the first part for ages, but I just haven't gotten around to starting it. And part of me was like, well, I should stitch the first part before we do the second part. And now, with kind of how my stitching has been going, I don't know that I'm going to stitch along with the SAL. Maybe I'll change my mind. I will. But we'll see. But I'm glad I purchased the pattern, because I definitely want to support, Shaded Stitchery, and I would like to I would like to stitch both charts at some point coming up, whether it's with the SAL or not. Also, although I'm somewhat disappointed in myself in not keeping up with cross-stitching this month, and I know the previous month I didn't, back in November I didn't do a whole lot either. But for me, if I think back over the years, there's been a lot of hobbies that I've been interested in, and how into them I am, it sort of waxes and wanes, and I've been sort of surprised that I've stuck with cross-stitching for this long without really taking like a full-on break from it. And it may be that I just sort of need a little bit of a break to sort of get my desire to stitch back. But we'll see. One of the things that I find is that, even if I step away from something, and like I've talked about in previous videos, a lot of these hobbies, I'll get into stuff, I'll go at it, pretty hard for a while, and I'll, get all the things you need for it. And even if I lose interest, I keep all that stuff because I know that at some point I'm going to want to do it again. And that's why, even though I hadn't really been doing a lot of like knitting and crocheting, this year I certainly came back to knitting and learning to, knit socks. So in this past year, I've done guess 3 pairs of socks, and I have 2 more pairs partially done. And I think when maybe it was last year that I first sort of started trying to knit socks, but I did not complete a pair until this year. And I also have the sort of half-finished cardigan that I'm working on, where I did the crochet portion, but I haven't done the knit portion yet. And although I've had like a crochet blanket in the works for quite some time that I haven't touched in a while, I mean, it like I said, my interest comes and goes, but I eventually, kind of come back to things again. And, before doing these socks, I forget how many years it had been since I had knitted, but I had my stuff around and move forward with that, and I'm glad I did. I really enjoyed knitting socks, and even though I didn't work on it really this month, I do plan to finish the pairs that I have going. Let's see. So I guess we'll see what next year brings and whether I will change sort of the frequency of my videos or not, because if I'm not cross-stitching or doing, depending on what other things I'm doing, I suppose if I'm not cross-stitching, then it's not really, a floss tube. And I don't want to push myself to do things just to get a video out, although I suppose that's kind of what I did this month. So we'll see. I'll keep you updated on what I'm doing. Something that I could do, but I don't know that I want to do, is a whip parade, because I haven't done one for a while. I don't know if the last one was like a year ago. I can't remember when my last one was. I had thought about doing one sort of mid-year this past year, and then decided I just didn't want to do it, so I didn't. And that's kind of how I'm feeling now, although that's something I could do whether or not I do any cross-stitch in the next month. It's not something I'm excited about filming, and getting all the projects out and doing a big video and then editing that long video, showing everything. I don't know. Right now that doesn't sound fun to me. Maybe I will change my mind, but we'll see. What else? And I think that's sort of the bulk of kind of the cross-stitch stuff that I have to mention. I think maybe there's a little more I'll get into later, but that's kind of the bulk of the cross-stitch stuff. And so then, again, being the end of the year and reflecting kind of back over this year, I was, sort of thinking other things. And I guess, the other thing I wanted to mention was, so back a few months ago when Hobonichi was releasing their planners and I was trying to decide what I was or wasn't going to get, I ultimately settled on just getting a Hobonichi Weeks in sort of the mega size, because I determined that that's what I would use for all my cross-stitch stuff, which is, sort of what I'm doing this year. But this year I had been writing my, kind of notes for videos in a separate notebook, and I figured if I got the Weeks Mega, there would be plenty of pages in the back where then I could just put any video notes that I needed to do in there and keep it contained all in one. And this past year, I was not doing any personal, journaling, and so, particularly with tariffs and I wasn't ordering direct from Hobonichi because of, potential tariff concerns, and then ordering from within the US, everything is so much more expensive than ordering directly from Hobonichi, and so I ultimately just ordered that Weeks because I didn't want to buy other stuff that I wasn't going to use. Well, in the past month, I sort of determined that I really should start keeping some sort of journal to keep track of some family related stuff. And because of that, I figured that it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for me to start journaling again myself, kind of for my own mental health. So that means that despite thinking I was only going to get the weeks, I did go back and start looking on US websites and found a cover that I wanted in the A6 size. I don't remember the name of it, but it's the one that's kind of the brown gray plaid. And I ordered that as well as a second of just the book to so that I could reuse a cover that I currently have, and so I now have more Hobonichi stuff around when that wasn't the plan. But now I have that, and I think it's probably although it was not planned, I think it's probably a good idea for me. And then because of this, since I'm planning to journal again, again, in the going back to old hobbies, I went and pulled out, the collection of fountain pens that I have and inked some of those up to sort of, get ready to start doing journaling in the new year. And let's see. And with going into a new year, I'm sort of think about things, and I guess I don't necessarily do resolutions as much as sort of goals that I want to aim for. I mean, in the past, it's been things about, like a number of years ago, I had wanted to try knitting socks. That was something that I had as a goal. Try knitting socks, and I never got around to it, but, in this past year, I finally did it, and I was glad to do that. So thinking on things for 2026. One of the things, despite my not doing much cross stitch recently, whether it's with cross stitch or crochet or knitting or whatever other hobby, I want to continue to, kind of find joy through hobbies or crafting, whatever that may look like in 2026, whether it's different from this past year or not. It's something I want to keep doing, because obviously there's a whole lot of really awful stuff going on in the world, and it's stuff that's important to pay attention to, but I also want to make sure I am finding balance and joy and not getting completely, sucked into a dark place with all the bad stuff going on. I don't want to be consumed and paralyzed by all that. So finding joy in hobbies is something that is one of my goals for 2026. Another thing that I did this past year that I am happy about, I went back and looked that previously I had canceled my Amazon Prime subscription. I knew that, I wasn't necessarily going to stop using Amazon entirely, but I wanted to cut it out of my life as much as possible. So I logged back into my account to look at the orders that I had placed over, the past year without having Prime, and I saw I had placed 2 orders throughout the year. I placed one order in April and one in August. So obviously I didn't, completely stop using Amazon, but I'm sure that if I looked back in my history years and years ago, I certainly was using Amazon a whole lot more in the past. So I feel good about kind of where I'm at with that. I want to, continue to be as minimal as possible with my Amazon orders, understanding that, I'm probably not going to, entirely stop using it. There probably will still be occasions where I'm ordering, but if I'm doing it, twice a year, then I'm okay with that. Not ordering at all would be a great goal, but only twice during the course of the year is something I could live with. What else? And as far as things that I want to, things that I want to like actually do and finish, specific things, is that I do want to take that half-finished cardigan and finish it. I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but I would like to finish it during, the course of 2026, because I'm not going to get that done by the end of this year. And if I manage to finish that, the next thing that I would like, to try doing, whether that's next year or not, is I would like to, try knitting a sweater, like a pullover sweater. And I'm, starting with this cardigan because I figured that, when it comes to having something sized properly, that a cardigan is going to be easier to deal with than, an actual sweater, and hoping that it fits right. So, that's sort of for hopefully next year, and then maybe a little, further out there, goals. And, this is not on my list for next year, but down the road, if I can manage, to do this, a someday goal is if I could spin enough yarn myself to then create like a sweater out of it. That would be great, but I'm not envisioning that happening anytime soon, but that's sometime in the future. What else do I have noted here? So sort of this video is sort of the last crafting thing that I'm sort of making myself do before the end of the year. I'm not going to push myself any further than that to try and complete any projects and have them done by the end of the year, although that would be nice. Considering how I've been feeling, I'm thinking it's not going to happen, so I'm not going to push myself to do it. The one non-crafting thing I am going to make myself do is I am filming this on Christmas Eve, and sort of the family Christmas gathering is going to be after Christmas itself. So on Christmas Day, I am going to spend a lot of that day baking pumpkin bread, because that's kind of usually what I bring to holiday gatherings. And I have been informed that I should bring a lot more pumpkin bread than I brought during Thanksgiving. So I am going to spend tomorrow baking a lot of pumpkin bread so that I will have it ready for our gathering. So I hope that whatever you are celebrating this time of year, if you're celebrating anything, that even if you're not celebrating, I hope that everybody gets a chance to have some tasty food before the end of the year. And I am hoping that 2026 will bring better things than 2025, and I guess that's the hope for every year. But obviously, with the way that 2025 has gone, let's hope that there will be better things in 2026. So I will see you next year in some form or another, and as let's go on, I will of course keep you updated about what that's going to look like as far as how many videos I'm doing, or what's going on. We'll see what the new year brings. So as always, thank you for being here, and thank you for watching my videos, and I will see you soon. Bye.